All right, I think we are ready to roll. Rachel, would you, while I'm speaking, would you please monitor the hands if there are any hands that end up being raised?
Can do.
Okay, thanks. All right, everyone. Well, my name is Melissa Kamanya. I'm the Affordable Housing Coordinator with the City of Bend. Thank you for giving us an hour of your time today. I'm joined here by Rachel Baker, the Housing Division Manager, and we are excited to talk to you about the CDBG Public Services Food Bank activities in 2026-2027 program year. All right, we're going to start the show by talking about public services and the program overview. The City of Bend receives funding from the Community Development Block Grant Fund from HUD, the Housing and Urban Development Department of the U.S. government. And one of the requirements of that program is that every 5 years we do what's called a consolidated plan. That is a deep dive into data, community feedback, and different types of surveys where we assess the top needs of the community. Then we rank those needs into funding priorities over that 5 year period. What this means is that any of our funding opportunities have to fall within one of these funding priorities for it to go to our Affordable Housing Advisory Committee. So for the purpose of today, you will see that we have item number 3 in the funding priority is to provide support to necessary public services. That is where your food banks, food pantries, and community kitchens fall within that third arm. So the CDBG program has some national objectives that it's important for you to understand. Federal regulations specify that all activities undertaken using CDBG funding must meet at least one of the following national objectives. There must be a benefit to low and moderate income or LMI persons. It must aid in the prevention or elimination of slums or blight, or meet a need having a particular urgency. So I'm going to take you back to that second bullet there, aid in the prevention or elimination of slums or blight. That is a HUD definition of what slum or blight is, and Bend currently doesn't have anything that qualifies for slum or blight. Similarly, a need having a particular urgency, we don't currently have a particular urgency. The last time that there was an urgency for these type of HUD funds were during the COVID pandemic, where Rachel Baker was managing the program and put out many, many, many offerings with additional CDBG funds. Okay, Rachel, I'm going to pass it back to you for the history and focus direction for public services.
So historically, the city of Bend and its CDBG program have opened their public service applications for all kinds of public services throughout the city of Bend. This year, there is a little bit of a different approach, and this is the basis for that different approach. Recent federal executive orders and guidelines require public services of CDBG awardees to collect new types of information from the people they serve. There's ongoing litigation that the city of Bend is involved in, and that will determine whether public service CDBG awardees in Bend must collect such information from service recipients. And until then, that pending resolution of the litigation, the city of Bend will pursue funding CDBG programs under guidelines that avoid imposing additional data collection requirements on public service awardees. This information was taken and to our Affordable Housing Advisory Committee, and they made recommendations on moving forward with the CDBG application process in a slightly different way than in years past. You can move on from there, Melissa.
Thank you, Rachel. So as Rachel queued up in February 24th, actually, the Affordable Housing Advisory Committee made the decision after hearing that information to open these applications only to food banks, community kitchens, or food pantries. The reason being, we will discuss in more detail throughout this presentation, but it is because food banks, community kitchens, and food pantries benefit an area rather than individuals. And that will be important, and we'll explain that in a little bit later in the presentation. But those are the primary objectives for this funding offering. An area benefit. To be considered as an area benefit, food banks, community kitchens, and food pantries must benefit all residents of a specific geographic area in which at least 51% of the population is low and moderate income. I know what you're thinking, all of you listening. What does that mean? Essentially, HUD takes a look at demographics with using census data, and it calculates what percent each different census tract and block has with the percent of the population that is low to moderate income. There is a formula that HUD uses, and it is in our database that we use to report. So what ultimately all you need to know is that staff will provide that guidance to you on whether your area qualifies under this criteria. And just spoiler alert, we've checked all of the ones that were invited to this webinar, and they all qualify under that criteria. We will run the numbers one more time once we understand interest for the application. And if at all your area does not qualify, we will immediately let you know so that you don't proceed with the application. Okay, so when we think about area benefit, there's some other things that we want you to understand. The service area, meaning your client base or your organization, your services must be available to everyone in your defined service area, not only to income qualified individuals. And Rachel and I have decided that we will be looking at your service area as a half-mile radius from your food bank. That's assuming that folks could access your services, of course, with a car, but they could also access it on foot, on a bike, or public transportation in a half-a-mile radius. So that's what we will be looking at in our database. Eligibility for your services must be based on the characteristics of the area, not on screening individual clients. So if you remember, the reason that we have shifted this focus is so that we are able to understand that we're not looking at individual client as qualification and therefore their reporting information, but the characteristics of the area, which is that 51% of the area residents must be low to moderate income. Your service area must be reasonable and defensible. So this is, as I mentioned, Rachel and I have determined we're going to look at a half-a-mile radius. It's reasonable to assume people could walk to your services, push a stroller, pull a wagon, walk from a bus stop. And we are looking at census tracts and blocks. And HUD also requires that the area be primary residential and meet that threshold using their published data. All right, before we go on, I want to pause and see if there are any questions. And if there are, I'll ask that you raise your hand. I do see a hand raised. We'll start with Carly. Carly, you should be able to unmute and go ahead and ask your question.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. I am the food bank director at Neighbor Impact. I was thinking, just listening to your half-mile radius, we have a program that delivers food out to folks, but it would be greater than a half-mile service area. But but we would meet folks where they're at. Is that applicable here?
Rachel, I'm going to ask you to weigh in on that.
I think we would just need to understand a little bit more about where you're delivering.
Okay. It would only be in Redmond to homebound folks at their houses or
only services in the city of Bend can be funded. So
only services city bed. Okay, perfect.
If there's homebound folks, we would probably just look at like kind of those folks in Bend, those locations. And here is where it gets a little like kind of fuzzy, and you as an organization might need to determine. It sounds like you might have a lot of personal information about who you are serving homebound with regards to address and locations, and just be aware that even though we're doing this as a area benefit, if that information is collected, there might be federal interest in that information that could or could not be protected. We can't guarantee that.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yep.
Thank you. Okay. Cynthia, you are unmuted or you'll need to unmute, but you
Got
should
it.
be able to. Okay, there you go.
Okay. My question is in the Q&A as well, similar to Carly's. Hi, Carly. We only deliver to people who can't get out and walk or don't have transportation. So how does that work for us? I don't even know how many of our clients are within a half-mile radius of where our central office is at the 1036 building. That seems, it could be problematic. So just before we launch any further, can you clarify that?
Sure. Cynthia, could I ask, are you interested in applying funds for your Meals on Wheels or for
Yes.
your meals in the facility?
Well, we could do either or. That's a very good question, actually. I was just thinking Meals on Wheels from you and I having our original
Sure.
conversation, but we could do for community dining. That would be helpful. Those people all drive or walk. So that's a way
Okay.
we could go about that. Thanks for clarifying that. I was just focused on Meals on Wheels.
For sure. And then if I could, and Cynthia, it kind of goes back to what Rachel just explained. If you are doing Meals on Wheels, you'll have very specific information about who you're serving. And that is not the purpose or we can't guarantee the privacy for that. So,
So let me just stop right there for a second. We have a NAPIS form that we use for our community dining people. Everybody fills one out. So we do have data that, and we do have Latinos that come to our community dining program. So we do not want to expose them. So
no,
that
no,
right there
no.
could be a
Right.
challenge.
Let me ask another clarifying question, Cynthia.
Sure.
Could anybody come in and access the meals?
You have to be 60 or older to qualify for a no charge meal. You could make a $5 donation if you came in with somebody else that was 60 or older. We typically don't get younger folks than that in our facility, but we get reimbursed for anybody that's 60 or older.
Okay.
I,
And would it be
by the
reasonable to assume that folks could walk or ride a bus or drive to access the free meal?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Okay. Well,
That
good.
doesn't include anyone or exclude anyone from the area benefit if someone's traveling from outside of the area.
Right.
It just needs to make sure that it's available to everyone within that block radius.
Right. So let me just say this as a sidebar. We do have a group that comes from all over Central Oregon, Latinos specifically, and they dine at all of our different community facilities, and they have a schedule. I don't want to share too much information, but they're from all over the region. Some of them live in Bend, some of them don't. So there's that.
Yeah, I think we'll look more
Yeah.
carefully at what information you're collecting from
Okay.
diners, just to kind of give you more guidance more
And
specifically.
And actually, Rachel, I think I might have one I could share with you outside of this that you can see not everybody fills it out completely. It's kind of cumbersome at best,
Right.
but we do have a form that we are required to have fill out to the best of the client's ability.
Okay. Yeah, we'll
I
look
can,
at that
I
more
can share that with
individually.
you
Yeah.
after. Okay, great.
Yep.
Thanks. Sorry to take up so much time.
Not a problem. Thank
Hey,
you.
okay.
Okay. I don't see any other hands up, so we're going to keep going. We're going to talk next
And
about, oh, yes, go
Melissa, I
ahead.
was just going to say, for everyone on this call, don't be afraid to ask these like very specific to your agency questions, because these are weird times and we want to make sure you have a clear picture of this type of funding and like the sometimes scary tentacles that are coming with it.
Absolutely. And Rachel, if I could back you up on that note to Carly's question, just thinking about the neighbor impact model and how they do provide food to other food banks and within Bend that are in those LMI tracks. Could you talk about that idea as well?
Sure. I mean, if neighbor impact is extending its services or funding or resources to all of you, that also could be an easy way to kind of hit that area benefit without necessarily collecting that personal private information um, from individual homes that are served in those kinds of processes.
Thank you,
So this is Carly again,
Carly.
because I'm brainstorming.
Yes.
So if something, for instance, you mean we provide food to a lot of probably folks on this call right now. If we ask for food purchasing dollars for Bend partner agencies, would that be applicable?
100%.
Yep.
Got it.
And then we would look at the facilities, where the partnering agencies are. They would have to be within the city of Bend, and they would have to, within a half a mile radius, have greater than 51% be low to moderate income persons. And
So am I
we
still,
have the math. We have the math. We'll do that math for you.
am
Okay.
I still mute? Am I muted or not?
No, you're not muted. Go ahead, Cynthia.
So I would like to add to what Carly's saying because she is the exact person, or neighbor impact is who I referred to in my answer to you from your question last week. We
Yes.
have neighbor impact show up on Thursday, and they are the food truck that comes with a variety of foods all year long. We have seen, just for their benefit, I see people with strollers, walkers, cars, you name it. They show up on that Thursday, and the line for the food truck has gotten exceptionally long, and they typically run out of items. So
Okay.
it would stand to reason that that's a partnership that's working that benefits everybody.
Good to know. Thank you, Cynthia.
Yeah, yeah.
And we've got one more hand up. That's Olivia. Olivia, let me see if I'm going to allow you to talk. You should be able to unmute.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. I love this. All of my favorite people are on this call. So my question, you said you said to ask our very specific questions. Mine is kind of coming from the opposite direction, which is that we don't collect any data on the folks that are accessing our services. Is that an issue?
We will get in, there's a few other things that we'll chat about, but we will talk about how, as an area benefit, you qualify your persons. So we will get to that, Olivia. In short, there will be some type of self-attestation, at least, that we'll set awardees up with. And what that typically looks like is we'll provide an income chart, and people accessing benefits just kind of say, oh yeah, I'm under the red line.
Thank you.
Just as simple as it gets, yeah. But we'll get into more detail. Okay, program requirements. Bear with us. These next few slides are a little bit less sparkly in content, but they are critical pieces of the program that all of you need to understand. Your application will be completed in our Neighborly software portal. After this training, those of you who, after hearing all of the content, are interested in applying will be provided a link to the application. The application is not openly available to the public. It is by invitation only after this training. We understand that it is difficult to write and submit an application within 1 week, so staff is available to provide guidance and support as is appropriate during an open application cycle. I do want you to know that the application has recently been completely revised with the idea of making it easier to fill out, where it still complies with all the things that we need, but it's less of a barrier to completion. So there are sections, you'll describe your project, you'll describe the work, when you will complete it, you'll tell us your project schedule with milestones, and provide information on a budget. The CDBG program has pretty detailed requirements on what type of records you have to keep. This is just a short list, and any of you that are awarded funds will be provided additional information. In short, your records have to show that a national objective is being met by your work. And as you heard earlier, income is basically the only national objective that applies to your project. So there has to be some type of record keeping to show that your clients meet the national objective for benefiting low to moderate income persons. That is the area benefit with the census tract data, but also through self-attestation. We will require you to maintain detailed financial records. There is monthly reporting required with this funding. There's also a final report that will include leverage information, meaning what other funds did you have to complete this project? Did you have state funds or private donor funds or other type of federal funds? We'll also ask for a client success story or a client impact story. The program also requires that records are maintained for 4 years after final payment and all other pending matters are closed. Measures, outcomes, and indicators. I've trimmed this down. This is actually, there's a lot of additional information that doesn't apply to food banks. So this is specific to food banks. When we enter projects into the federal database, there are certain milestones, if you will, that we have to show that you qualify. The performance measure for food banks would fit under the creating suitable living environments. Now you're wondering, what does that mean? It essentially means that your work will help improve overall living for residents. That's by better nutrition, access to food, lower housing costs, or lower costs that help them have a more suitable living environment. Outcomes would be, as you can see here, availability or accessibility of public services and food, and improving their overall livability. Indicators, how you prove that, are evidence of leverage funding, as I mentioned, how many people are assisted, what the general income is for the people that you've assisted, and very, very basic race, ethnicity, and disability data. Don't panic, we will get to that a little bit further down in the presentation. I do want you to understand there are, because this is federal funds, there are reporting and invoicing requirements that we would like you all to consider your administrative capacity for this. As I mentioned, there is that income verification. I will provide awardees with an income chart with a red line. All that we ask is that you do a basic self-attestation where clients don't have to sign anything. They just have to verify that they're under the red line for income. And then you will keep track of how many people you are serving with the CDBG funds. So if the funds that you get give you enough food for 2 months for your clients, for those 2 months, you will collect basic information about your clients. We're not asking for names or addresses or anything like that, but it's the basics. It's, yes, they're under that income level, and what is the basic race and ethnicity demographics of your clients. If you don't provide that or clients refuse to provide that, we will assume the race and ethnicity to match the demographics of the census tracts in the areas. Something else that's important for all of you to understand is that we are looking for unduplicated numbers of people served with the funds per month. What does that mean? That means if Mr. Smith comes every Wednesday to access food, you only can report Mr. Smith once. I know it's a little tricky. A lot of times our awardees say, well, gosh, then I might just have 1 month where I report 200 people because the same 200 people come every month. Does that mean we report a 0 for the next 3 months? Yes, it does mean that. We're really only interested in the unduplicated numbers. Similarly, invoicing, we do request that you are invoicing the City of Bend for reimbursement monthly. So what does that mean? That means we do not provide the funds up front to you. You do need to provide evidence of what was purchased. And there's an invoice form that you will provide along with all evidence, and it gets uploaded into the Neighborly software portal. And we do request that that is done monthly. Okay. Program management, the standards for the program. We we'll be looking, and you will be visited by myself or other members from the housing division team to do monitoring. So not only do we look at your application to see if you have the staffing capacity to be able to do all of these administrative tasks, but we will come and visit you throughout the program year just once to make sure that you have internal control. So that is, do you have policies and procedures that talk about how you run your programs and who does what? We'll look at your accounting records. We look at allowable costs. So HUD requires us to determine whether what you're asking for reimbursement is not only allowable, but reasonable. So if I know a banana costs 50 cents, but you're giving us a receipt for a banana that's $10, that's really not reasonable. That's an extreme example, which I know doesn't apply to any of you, but that is the lens of how we look at what is submitted for reimbursement. Similarly, staffing costs. If we know that if you do choose to ask us to reimburse you for staffing costs, and you are paying someone 5 times what other jurisdictions and other similar agencies pay, that's not reasonable. So those are the kind of things that we look at. Loan servicing doesn't apply to you because your funds would be a grant, not a loan. All right. Internal controls, as I mentioned, things that we look at are your org chart. Is there a clear definition of duties and responsibilities? Do we see evidence of a system of authorization and supervision? Is there that adequate separation of duties? We don't want to see a one-person show because of that separation of duties is important. Similarly, hiring and compensation policies, do you have those in place? Do you have a way to securely store your accounting records? Do you have a periodic review of your records? That would be through your, unless you received 750,000 in federal funds in a year, we wouldn't require you to have a full single audit, but we do like to see that you have some type of periodic review of your financial records. And then lastly, a policy for personally identifiable information and how you protect it. We aren't asking for any of that, but we still would like to see that you have that policy of how you protect that information for your clients. Accounting standards. There is a federal guideline called 2 CFR 200. It has a lot of those milestones and those hedges, if you will, and guidelines for the federal government, and that outlines all their accounting standards. So we would be happy to send you that, but it's also our job to make sure you understand it. It also talks about audit requirements or exceptions. And then I won't read each of these bullets. You're probably all reading it anyways as I'm talking, but these are the other types of accounting things that we would be looking for in our reviews. All right, allowable costs. Very specific to this application, eligible costs are limited to the costs associated with the operation of a food bank, community kitchen, or food pantry. It's limited to staff costs, supplies, utilities, maintenance of the facility, and insurance. That is it. So when we look at your budget and what you would be submitting for reimbursement, as I mentioned, are they necessary, reasonable, and directly related to CDBG funding? So I probably wouldn't expect to see a receipt for something like something outside of food bank. And then there is an entire list of ineligible expenses. So what is important for you to understand as well is the federal government has a guideline that it doesn't fund anything on wheels. So it wouldn't be vehicle maintenance. It wouldn't be the cost to operate a vehicle or an outreach bus or an outreach van, but it could staff the cost for the staffing, the food that goes in that van, things like that. But it actually, nothing on wheels can the federal funds be used for. Allowable costs must be authorized by the City of Bend. So if you give us a budget for things that aren't eligible, we'll tell you that, and we'll let you know before we enter into agreement what is and is not eligible. Must be consistently treated. So a giant promotion for an employee midstream, we wouldn't expect to see that or authorize that, or that wouldn't be typically allowable. And then you can read these other bullets, but essentially the catch-all phrase is any allowable costs must not be prohibited under federal, state, or local laws or regulations. And there is an exhaustive list in the application that you can take a look. Oh, and here we go, ineligible costs. Buildings used for government, the purchase of construction equipment, personal property, furnishings, fixtures, or motor vehicles. There's those wheels. While generally operating and maintenance expenses are not eligible, they are eligible under this food bank criteria, but that is something if you are intending to ask for funds for operating or maintenance expenses, you must confer with staff first because we'll need to tease out what exactly that would mean for you. In general, the CDBG funds aren't used for new housing construction, which you're not doing. Income payments or the purchase of gift cards are not eligible. Cash payments or grants to individuals, any kind of car expenses or political activities are all ineligible. And then, like I mentioned, you will get a visit on site from a friendly City of Bend Housing Division employee, and we will review program files and make sure that the funds are being utilized in accordance with program requirements and your application and program. Whew, I'm going to take a breath and I'm going to look at all of you to see if anyone has questions. You're welcome to raise your hand and I'll call on you. I don't see any hands, so that means you're either all on board or all just ready to move through. So if I don't see any other hands, I'll keep going. Okay, we're going to keep moving. Let's talk about the application. Here is the timeline for this offering. Because we're doing this a little bit differently, it will be handled slightly differently. You're all with me over here on March 16th in the webinar. Immediately after the webinar, if you want to proceed with the application, it opens at noon today. You will need to let me know in an email that you want to proceed with the application, and then I will email you back with a link to access your application. They are due in 1 week from today at noon. We understand this is a short timeline. We understand that most of you have not seen our application before. Typically, the guidelines that I give our partners is I'm available to you before the application opens, not during the open period, but then again afterwards. Because of this short timeline, we do ask that if you have questions that you submit them to us in email, so then we can give your question and response to everybody, so everybody has a chance to read those. Okay, applications are due in a week at 12 p.m. And then on the 30th, a small group of the Affordable Housing Advisory Committee members will review all submitted applications and make their recommendations on March 31st. So you guys, this is quick. Within less than a month, there will be some funding recommendations. After that, you should know that these funds are not available until on or after July 1. And even that is questionable if they will be available on or after July 1st. Rachel, do you want to talk about funding timelines and potential unpredictabilities, please?
Okay, so historically, funds have been available July 1st of each year, but every year Congress gets a little more complicated with how they fund things. Although there was an appropriations bill passed, we assume funding could be available as early as July 1. However, in recent years, even when appropriations bills have been passed fairly timely, we've often seen grant agreements not given to the city for CDBG funding until August or September. So please be aware that you can, at least if awarded fundings, start records for reimbursement of July 1, but we might not be able to get you payments until October or November. It really just depends on the function of our federal government, and that has not been consistent over the past 2 years. in addition, all that litigation mentioned earlier, that too may determine kind of how things move.
Thank you, Rachel. If you are recommended for funding on March 31st in the Affordable Housing Advisory Committee meeting, staff will provide you updates as we have them on funding timelines, funding availability, or federal changes. Another place that you can keep up with what's going on is you can scan this QR code. It'll take you to the Notice of Funding Opportunity page. And this is updated regularly. So this would be where I would hope that you would go to before you check in with staff. So currently there's the timeline that I showed you. The slides will be uploaded here so you can go back and watch the slides. They will be available to you. And then also a link to watch the recording will be provided shortly after the meeting. You can go ahead and scan this QR code now, but it really won't help you until I provide you access to the application. But once I provide you with access to the application, you will have to create yourself an account in our Neighborly software. And when you log in, it will show you the application that I've created for you and you can jump on in. So you're welcome to create yourself an account now, but it won't take you anywhere until after you have decided to participate, and then I add you to an application. And when you tell me that you want to apply, I will send you this link anyways on how to get started. Okay, that is the end of my presentation. I'm going to stop sharing because we'd like to hear from you. And after hearing all of this, are there any other questions from the group? Please raise your hand if you have any questions. Okay, Chris, let me allow you to talk. Okay, Chris, you should be good to unmute.
Okay, my question is just to verify what I think I heard regarding gathering demographic information about the people that participate in our food bank. If we don't provide information, you assume that we are representative of our census block?
Correct.
Is that correct?
Correct, that half-mile radius.
That's a delight to my ears. Thank you.
Yes, we understand that there are situations where folks decline to provide that information, or it's just not something that was readily available. And so in that case, we will defer to the demographics of that half-mile radius.
Great, thank you.
Sure. Carly?
Yeah, I have a very specific question. Let's say I apply to do food purchasing for our partner agencies in the Bend area. Therefore, it's for us at Neighbor Impact, a direct client service, but it provides food to agencies that will be improving the lives of clients. Would that be applicable, and what kind of reporting then would be expected on my end, because I wouldn't be collecting client data?
I'm so glad you asked that, Carly. So I want to zoom it back a little bit because the City of Bend receives these funds and we are the recipient, and it's our job to pass down all of our criteria for complying with this grant to you. So Carly, if I'm telling you, you have to follow all of these guidelines, that means that who you pass the benefit down to has to follow those guidelines. So as an example,
Gotcha.
if you are benefiting all the partners on this call, all the partners on the call have to do that basic information gathering and give it to you, and then you would give it to me. It's like a ladder. We go up and down.
Yep.
Rachel, is there anything you want to expand on that?
No, I will say that we have gotten creative with partnerships in our community. Like, for example, Cleveland Commons. There's a partnership between Shepherd's House and doing the services there, and Neighbor Impact has an interest in the property and the building, and Housing Works kind of did the development and also funds the property management. So there's all those kind of like different organizations to create something that really serves our community. So often we can say like, well, if you're in partnership with this organization, we can give them direct access to Neighborly to plug in the information potentially. It would be complicated if you're, I think, doing or serving so many food banks or so many
Mhm.
pantries, because they would all be entering information into one awardee kind of package in Neighborly. But we'll see what we can do to help you best access information from everybody and set you up for success for sure.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. Olivia, go ahead.
Sorry, I want to kind of re-ask the same question that Chris just asked. I really want to make sure I'm understanding the data collection and reporting piece of it.
Yes.
So, if I'm understanding correctly, there's a level of the information collection that we can lean on you all to help extrapolate. What are the pieces that, like, we as a nonprofit absolutely 100% have to collect to make this happen?
Yes, I'm glad you asked. So I will say I have been in other food banks in Central Oregon that have, I think the FDA has a similar income chart I've seen on different food bank walls, where basically the basic information you have to collect is how many unduplicated persons you're serving with our funds. So, Olivia, for you, if you design a program where you're using City of Bend funds to sponsor your Wednesday meals, then on those Wednesdays, I would expect that you are doing the self-certification. You have an income chart on the wall, and your clients just say, "Yep, I'm under the red line." And you're just counting how many people you have are benefiting from our funds on that day. That is the basic information. And then regarding the racial and disability information, if you are unable to collect that or clients decline to provide that, we will use the racial demographic information for the half a mile radius according to census tract data.
Thank you.
Yes.
Can I ask one other very specific
Yes,
question?
yes,
And this might
please
not be super, this might not be like the nicest question ever.
do it.
Is there an opportunity? I think what I'm trying to figure out is with our current service model, this is going to be quite a big change for us. We've never gotten federal funds or anything like that. And I'm just weighing the pros and cons. Is there a chance or an opportunity to apply for funds? And if the funds we are granted are not, I don't want to say like worth it, but if someone was going to say, here's $2,000, now go collect a ton of data, that probably would not be worth it for us, right? To
Understood.
say, actually, that's not worth it, or would you say just don't apply?
That's a great question, Olivia. And I think you're identifying something that most of the friends on the call are probably thinking about because there is a cost, essentially administrative cost to these funds. And so I wouldn't be able to give you direction on what that dollar amount would be to make that worth your staff time. But you're right. Federal funds they have a lot of regulations and requirements. And staff, we do our best to try to buffer you from some of that, but it's a lot. It just is. So I understand. And I just wouldn't want to give you a dollar amount to say, well, $10,000 would be worth your time. It really just depends on your capacity and whether or not you have the ability to meet the requirements of the program.
No, that makes total sense. And I wasn't even really looking for a dollar amount. Let me rephrase that just
Okay,
to see if this adds clarity. If Family Kitchen were to apply and the amount was not enough that for us it made sense to put all these
gotcha.
reporting requirements in, is there any, like, would it portray negatively for future opportunities with the city of Bend if we were then to say, actually,
Not
thank
at
you, but
all.
never mind?
No, not at all. No, not at
Thank you.
all. Yeah. The amount of funding that we estimate to be available is hard to pinpoint an exact dollar amount because of the uncertainties. We don't
Can
know
I call you
exactly
back
what
in
our
a few?
award will be. But
Okay, I'm in a meeting. I'll call you back shortly. Bye.
But we estimate somewhere around 90,000. And so any of you could ask for the entire 90,000, or you could ask for a $10,000 grant. It just really depends. And yes, Olivia, if you are awarded funds and the amount that you're awarded is not worth your time, you could graciously decline. Yes, and it will not be any type of negative thing for you moving forward.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
Can I say something if I'm still muted or not
You're
muted?
good to go. Go ahead, Cynthia.
So here's a thought for all of us to think about. And this is a conversation that I've had with other organizations and whatnot. We are all in need of funding. However, which one of us right now could use more funding than another that is going to, if one of us chooses to say, oh, this is probably not the best for us, I like to think of it as, are we helping somebody else get more money to continue to do the same work that they're doing if they can manage all the challenges? So, let's say there's a pot of money for $90,000 and there's nine of us that apply and we all get 10,000. What if, think about the perspective that, okay, so let's step out of the fray. So maybe that organization that needs $20,000 will get that money instead. It's just it's a way of thinking about, we're all community and we're all scrabbling for funds, but we're all doing the same work. So are we all serving the same people in different ways? What's the best way to go about thinking about what you're applying for instead of applying for everything and getting these little tiny buckets that might create more work?
Yeah, I
That's
would also just, I thought you brought a good point up earlier, Cynthia, too, in earlier comments about really strategizing about where this type of funding would be like less burdensome for your organization too. And figuring out like, okay, we might do lots of different things that are food oriented, but where do we see lots of community need that we could just like put in the dollars, like you were talking about the food that comes to the community and how the people just are more and more in need of greater food. And
Yeah.
that I would expect to increase, specifically when you think about the SNAP benefits now requiring having work requirements. It's going to affect the community in a way that I think will just continue to grow over time here.
Right. So again, we're just all in the same pot. What is going to be the most effective for whoever? I mean, we're Council on Aging is serving buckets of meals. The Giving Plate is serving buckets of food out, and I know the Family Kitchen is busting to do the same. So how do we support each other while striving to get that money in our pot, but remembering there are other people out there doing the same thing?
that is a good
I
question.
believe
Yeah.
Olivia posed the question to all of you in the Q&A of what if we encourage Neighbor Impact to apply on behalf of all Bend organizations? So
That's something that popped into my brain earlier while I was just listening to what you were saying, because they can, their food truck. I don't know, Carly, how many days of the month you deliver, but I know you deliver to a lot of places. So is it better to, again, let somebody else apply for the bucket that's going to make a bigger impact in the community that has the capacity? Just things to think about. And I've been
No, Cynthia, I really appreciate it because yeah, I've been trying to think of a way that we could do it at Neighbor Impact to benefit y'all. I mean, that's our
right,
role, right?
right, right.
I wouldn't want to include our mobile pantry because we do take client information and I'm not willing for that to be
Yeah, I got it.
scrutinized, but yeah, I'm just not willing to, I want to protect our clients. So where it becomes complicated on our end too is that let's say, we decide to partner in, we've got a lot of partner agencies in Bend, so that would be in order for us to make it worthwhile on the administrative level, we would say, hey, we're going to choose 4 pantries in Bend and track it that way. The problem is none of us track unduplicated numbers either. And then I worry too, again, if it goes down that ladder, again, that client information is not protected, and that is I am not willing to risk our
Right.
clients' protection.
So,
So it keeps, I
yeah,
am thinking of it because I would like to be able to, if it wasn't such a high barrier, volatile bucket of federal money, and I've had my experience with CDBG and TFAP money, so I get it. Um, I would want to do that for y'all.
do you guys
But I have
track
so
that?
many.
Do you track that? Because when I go out there, what do? They ask me for my first name
Mhm,
and they ask me how many people live in my house. What
mhm.
else do you ask for when someone's going to the food truck and
Um,
there's the gal with the iPad there taking information?
yeah, Lennon. So we asked for name, number of people in household. There is on every intake form, there is the you self-attest so to your income level. So
Right.
it's posted on every single intake. We don't verify income, we don't verify any sort of identification. Um, but we do ask for name, zip code, number of people in household. And with the fear in our
Mhm.
Latine community, we already are seeing a decrease in folks because of fear,
Right.
rightfully so.
Right.
Um, I just, and in all honesty, I don't even know how that jives with our TFAP, um, our TFAP contract, because of client confidentiality. It's weird that that information could be scrutinized when it's supposed to be protected. So under another federal program.
Well, Carly, the information that it sounds like you're gathering is
Hmm.
just what we would be asking for. You're already doing the self-attesting.
Hmm.
Any, there isn't anything more that would be required for this program.
Okay.
Yeah,
The
you wouldn't have
problem.
to deliver us those names that you're collecting.
Mm-mm.
You wouldn't have to provide that
Okay.
to us.
Um, and then the other layer is we don't we do duplicated numbers. And with the volume of people we're serving, I mean, we hit through our network, we hit over 1 million visits to pantries and meal sites last year. So I don't know how I would require that for agencies that would receive that food. Not everybody is really set up to be able to do that. So
Carly,
I'm just, there's a lot going through my brain.
understood. A question for you. How far would $90,000 go?
I mean, right now we are averaging 75. I would put it all into food purchasing. Nothing else because I wouldn't want to deal with the reporting requirements on anything else other than food purchasing, to be
Okay.
honest with you. And that is
Mhm.
very straightforward as far as collecting and retaining invoices. So $90,000, we're averaging about 75 cents a pound. So it would be about 67,000 pounds of food.
And how long would that last?
Couple weeks because we're doing
Okay.
about 4 million pounds of food.
So I'm just talking out loud.
No, I really appreciate the.
It would be reasonable for me as a gathering your information and reporting to the federal government to assume maybe that if the food only lasted you 2 or 3 weeks, that you likely wouldn't have duplicated persons in that time period, depending on how frequently people come to access your benefits.
Okay. Okay.
I also think if you're collecting names, we don't have to receive those names. but we could maybe help you figure out how to filter that
Yeah.
through at least for 2 or 3 weeks, determining how things were not duplicated.
Yeah.
And if you came up with a proposal that was a limited duration proposal, that maybe it's for the month of July and August, this money is going to do this and this many food banks, then that would really streamline the reporting requirements, kind of tease out that duplication a little bit, and then make a big impact in a short time. Other than we're going to charge you for bananas for 12 months. Like it'd be
Yeah, we would want to
easier.
we want to hit that spending hard and get it done with for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So sorry, I know I'm taking up a lot of the time. Um, so you're saying you don't need our intake forms, is that correct?
We will not ask for that. What I would ask for is to review your policy on how you do intake. And I would
Okay,
need to see how you store your intake forms and for how long you keep them. And then
for
you would
years.
report the numbers to us, but not the actual forms.
Got it. Okay.
And then
That's better information, or that's more positive, doable information.
and then on that same line, Olivia asked when the funds needed to be spent by, and that is by June 30th of 2027.
Mhm.
Thank you. And Carly, I did not intend to put all of this work on you, but I do think we are onto something in terms of collaboration. So I don't know how maybe we could help you, Carly, if this ends up being just a neighbor impact undertaking, but feel free to reach out.
I think just to jump in on that statement, Olivia, what would be helpful um, is if that project were to move forward in this dreaming phase, to have some type of MOU, a quick MOU to say, neighbor impact, here's the food banks that you're envisioning benefiting from this. So that would be, if Olivia, if you want to be a part of that, some type of letter to say that you've agreed to be in partnership, I think that would be helpful for our advisory committee to review and understand.
Would it be like we already have partner agency agreements signed between us?
Yeah,
Would
that's
that
it.
be, yeah,
Yep.
so
Yep, that's great.
that's kind of our agreement there, so that would be easy.
I see a hand raised by Kara or Kara. Just making sure I'm pronouncing that correctly.
Yeah.
Okay, I've given you opportunity to unmute. Go ahead. We can't hear you, Kara. If you're speaking, we can't hear you.
Am I on?
Oh, there you go. Yes, now I hear you.
Sorry, I had to get through my browser. Hi, I'm Kara. I'm a grant writer with Neighbor Impact. Very interesting conversation to be a part of. I was wondering if you could touch on, I think you mentioned something about like 4 years of reporting post spending.
Thank you, Kara, for asking that question. It's 4 years of keeping the records related to this grant that you
Okay,
have to keep it for 4 years. So it doesn't mean you have to keep reporting. Once you've spent the
got it.
funds, your reporting is complete. But the federal government requires that it's kept on your property for 4 years.
Okay,
I'm going
thank
to
you.
clarify a little bit. Once it's spent and all the food has been distributed,
Okay,
then the reporting is finished because
Yes,
we want to make sure that we get all the information of who in the area benefited from
correct.
that food.
And
right.
I do want to overly express that that is staff's job. For anyone who is recommended for funding and agrees to the funding. That's our job to make sure that all of those requirements are understood. And we provide technical assistance. We come on site. You're welcome to come visit us, but we will help you trust me, we're not just going to give you the federal guidelines and say, good luck, we'll see you in 6 months. We're going to help to make sure that everything's understood.
And
Great,
we
thank
really
you.
try and be proactive and set you up for success
Yeah.
so that you're not finding yourself in any trouble with the federal government either.
That's great. Thank you.
Well, we are at time, but I am available if there are more questions. Anybody who has a question, go ahead and raise your hand. Then if there aren't additional questions, please think on whether you are interested in submitting your own application or pursuing this partnership idea. Regardless, to have access to an application, you will need to send me an email stating your interest, and then I will provide the next steps for you. Please remember the applications are only open for a week. If you get in there and you have questions, email your questions to me as well. And we're thankful for your time. Thank you for your interest. Thanks for pivoting with us and really understanding this program. We are hopeful for robust applications and great success moving forward. Rachel, do you have anything else you want to add?
I don't, Kara still has a hand up. I just want to make sure that we addressed all her questions.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, I didn't
No, you're
lower
good.
my hand.
And just say thank you all. And it is a very complicated time. So we're kind of happy to walk you through some of those federal challenges that we are delicately dancing with in the community. And at the same time, we want to make sure that until there's clear guidance from the courts, that we are using these funds to the best of the community's ability. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
All right.
Thank you. Thanks for all the
Thank you.
answers. Appreciate
Got it.
it.
Thanks for all your work in the community.
Thank you.
Adios.